Hello, 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 everybody. Y'all ready for the last Whip Wednesday stream ever? No, not ever, but on YouTube at least. Maybe. God, I'm so flaky with this stuff. Good to see you all. Hello, Arvid. Hello, Marius. And we have Mario as well joining us, becoming a member of the community. Thank you so much for subscribing. That's awesome. Let me switch on over. Not gonna lie, I'm gonna miss the YouTube streams. Yeah, it is. It is something we just have to do something different. We have to experiment with this stuff, because as I mentioned before, it is just gonna be this thing where it's gonna sort of annoy me forever that we keep it in this in between space, and it's just like, we need to do something. So hopefully being able to engage with the community, actually talking to people, giving them feedback, doing more live demos, doing more like off the cuff stuff is going to be hopefully a good replacement for that. And I'm honestly looking forward to it, like being more involved, like possibly we're gonna do a trial today as well, where people, well, one person, Malta, is going to share their work with us, and I actually have it open in the background, and then we're going to do some like live demoing, which I want to do more of. I want to do more like live demoing instead of like just doing overpaints. I think that could also be cool. Hello, Galazar. Good evening. Hello, Vivek. Good to see you too. How are you doing? I am doing good. Thank you for asking. Where am I looking? What am I looking for? Where's my YouTube thingy? There we go. Great stream title reminds me of something. What could it be? Infrared is asking, what's today's stream about? So usually we start out with like a little bit of a rambling in the beginning. So we're just gonna chat about some stuff, some like things that I found on the internet that I wanted to talk about. And then we're gonna dive into some community feedback. So it's gonna be, how many people do we have today? Let me quickly take a gander. We have 9 people today for this session. So we are going to be talking about all those people, and everyone has a different question, so we're going to go through a bunch of people's stuff. Yeah. But we are also definitely going to be having a discussion about the stream title as well, because Jack, as he alluded to earlier, is in a dilemma. He's in a pickle, and we're gonna help Jack out with deciding between, hey, do I keep building this as this environment as a diorama, or do I build it into something bigger? We're gonna discuss that too. Dreamers Ball is saying, hey Tim, I need to submit something eventually. Yeah, it is sometimes, so I'm sort of glad on one side, but I'm also curious why people don't make use of like Whip Wednesday more. So I'm kind of torn with that, because it is there for our community, and like a lot of people seem to be, I don't know, maybe terrified of my feedback. I don't know if that's a thing, but I hope not. But yeah. Today was going good actually. We had a really really lovely co-working session. I did a bunch of work on my own scene, which was really fun. Really fun. So what I did today is I basically grabbed all my wood planks and beams and all that kind of stuff, and I started building stuff in my scene again, which was really nice. Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun. So basically, the current stage where I'm at with my medieval scene. Let me actually open it. Let me show some stuff. Visuals are always better. So let me quickly open it up in the background, and then we can yap about it a little bit. Where is it? Here you go. Let that do its thing. Yeah, but what I was doing is basically I had a very traditional approach to modularity before, right? Where basically I make a wall, I make it in Blender, I export that as a unique asset, and then I add that into my scene, right? What I'm doing now is sort of different. So I've built myself a Lego kit, and I build all the walls in Unreal Engine using level instances, and then I use those level instances to build bigger things like, I don't know, bridges, buildings, anything like that. So that was basically what I've been doing today. Just going through the scene, reconstructing things that I had lying around from like ages ago, and the scene is sort of looking a bit better again because before that, oh my god, my materials were fucked up for the longest time, and I just was too lazy to fix it, honestly. So yeah. Okay, let me show some stuff off. Let me make sure that everything is nice and readable. Let me do this first. So let's dive into some Unreal stuff. Let's switch it to midday so that you can actually see something. So basically, these are like my old assets, right? So like very traditional trim sheet stuff. Everything is like purely texture based. And now we're transitioning to something like this, where it is more mesh based. So you have like way more edges on the meshes, and it looks like way more interesting in geometry. And then I'm still gonna do like all the wrapping with the ropes and all that kind of stuff on top of it too. But basically, this has been my day, just reconstructing using all these individual pieces. So I can show you this stuff off. So if I go in here, I have like all my individual pieces here, and basically I'm just like reconstructing things, you know. And then as I go through all these individual pieces and I start updating them and texturing them and all that kind of stuff, then the whole scene is going to be revitalized. But that's the idea, at least. Lucas coming in. Hello, Lucas. Good to see you. And then we have Anmol Sori. Oh, hello, hello. Good to see you. You're making rocks. That's good. Everyone loves to sculpt some rocks. Talking about sculpting, Barzani is asking me, how do I sculpt? I sculpt in Blender. Yeah. So I don't have ZBrush. It's been um God, it's been 8 years since I last opened ZBrush or something like that, you know. So yeah, so I'm basically reconstructing all these individual pieces so that I can rebuild some of these buildings, and then I can then like rebuild the city again, you know. Because there's a bunch of stuff lying in here. It's all chaos. It's all ugly. It's all just all kind of chaos because stuff is broken all over the place. But slowly but surely, we're building stuff back into this place. Yeah, so that's the plan. You can kind of see that the docks have kind of been replaced already, which is a good showcase of what the detail is going to look like in terms of like geometry, which is quite nice looking. Yeah, and then we're just gonna be doing that for the whole scene basically. So it's just me going through, passing over all the stuff that I've built before, and then just bringing it to the next level. That's about it. And I'm just here hiding away and like replacing all the individual details. So again, like for example, I had these like small fences before. Now these are just like these little level instances that I can just like drag around, and I can just place them wherever I want. Same manner, but just like kind of different workflow. The thing that I love about these level instances is that I can just like I can go into them and then move stuff about. I can save them, and all the rest of the level instances just update automatically. It's so good, it's so flexible, and you can stack them inside of each other as well. So yeah. Where did you get the water? Or did you make it out of curiosity? No, so that water is from the Dark Ruins. The Dark Ruins something? From Quixel. It's a free asset. Um it's a free asset. Okay, I was saying a pivot at the center. Yeah, why not? Why not? It kind of depends on which asset, right? So like with these guys, it's on the edges because that allows me to like quickly just like build on a grid. And then for other assets like this one, I don't know. I might still redo the pivots because maybe it makes more sense to do it in here. But again, like when doing this in with level instances, it's so easy to just change this stuff up. I love it. Yep. Let's see. Looking nice, looking great. Was the rope texture a unique texture or was it part of a trim? No, it's a trim. Like if you have watched any of my streams, I know that I've done them, like I've not done them in the past couple of years, but when I was doing them, I will try to make everything a trim. So just to give you an idea of how much of a trim fiend I am, is everything that you see in this scene that is made out of wood is a single texture. It's all the same trim. So yeah, all the assets, all the buildings, like everything that you see that has wood is just like one texture. So to give you an idea of what kind of a trim sheet fiend I am. But that definitely has its limitations, because it does look okay, but if you then start comparing it to like the new textures or like the new more dense geometry kind of stuff, like yeah, it's definitely a difference though. Very efficient, that is true. Very efficient. Is this a medieval scene? Yes, yes, it is. It is. That's amazing because in Unreal nobody does that, and in the end there are 50k materials in the project. Yeah, it will probably depend on which project you look at, right? Because I know that if you come from, let's say, like a AAA background or something like that, you have to be very, very, very specific with how you use your textures and materials and optimization and all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, because you kind of get trained on it, especially if you work in an engine that is not Unreal, because usually Unreal has like all the bells and whistles, and then all the in-house engines they try to keep up, but they're usually lagging behind a little bit. So yeah, optimization was drilled into me from an early stage. But to be fair, I also want to throw out a caveat here that I've been doing this for the last 10 years, 10 years or more, right? So if you count like student days and all that kind of stuff. So don't use this as like a benchmark in terms of like how to build stuff necessarily, right? Because, or especially as a junior trying to build a portfolio piece, right? Because I'm throwing performance out the window most of the time because I just want to make cool shit now. Like, and we'll see how we can make it run at the end if we want to do that. But that's not the goal. I just want to make pretty pictures. Anyway, let's have a look at some questions. We got a whole bunch of questions about this. So yeah, rope texture was a trim. What is this environment gonna be? Basically what you're seeing. Like it is just gonna be like a medieval environment. I have some plans to continue building on the kit that I have already. Um there's a bunch of research that I've done on a city local to me, Antwerp, and I've looked through like all medieval manuscripts and all that kind of stuff to kind of get an idea of maybe I want to reconstruct that city in like the early 1100s or something like that. Maybe we'll do that. But yeah, at the moment, I'm just trying to get back into the project because the stuff that you're seeing here is basically mostly from, let's say, 2 years ago or something like that. With Wednesday, woo! Let's go. The live streams are still on YouTube. Yeah, this will be the last one that we do, Lily. So for everyone that hasn't heard, we are moving these live streams and with Wednesday and portfolio reviews, we're moving them all into Discord. It is the end of an era. It is for sure. And I'm super flaky with this stuff. Like we'll see. Like the goal of Whip Wednesday and portfolio reviews is that we can focus more on people's work and actually have more communication between myself and community members, right? Yeah. Do you do the texturing in Unreal or Substance Suite? Substance. And mix everything in Unreal Engine. So if this question sounds dumb, no. Don't worry about like any dumb questions. There's no dumb questions as far as I'm aware. Because honestly, like it's hard to know if you don't know something. So I do my texturing in Substance, and then what I do is I have some light procedural things on top of it. So, for example, you can kind of see it here. These wooden planks, they have like slight material variation or like color variation. That is something that I do based on the placement inside of Unreal Engine. So based on the world position, it gives like automatic like variation to like all the planks and stuff. Will these sessions, the future sessions, still be available as recording? Yes, they will for community members. We'll probably add them to the website so that you can watch them all there. We're probably gonna have to streamline some of the ways that we make them available, right? So there might be some hiccups here and there, but we'll do our best to kind of keep them up to date as soon as possible. Is it possible we can see how the trim map looks for the wood? Yeah, sure. It's also, if you want to know more about the trim sheets, we have a free document on our website that talks about like a trim sheet, and it also has like a preview of the trim sheet that I use and all that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna link to that now, and then I'll show you what that looks like. So here's a link to the trim sheet on our website. And let me show you. So textures, wood, wood kit. Here you go. That's it. That's all the wood. What is this? 4K texture? Yep. Let's see. There were some other questions as well. Let me see if I didn't miss anything. The water, we already talked about that. Yeah, sculpting I do in Blender. Yeah. The master shader handles variations. That's nice. Yeah. There's a lot of cool tricks that you can do within Unreal Engine if you are smart with the information that you want to use. There's God, I really need to know this by heart now because I keep referencing this talk like over and over. But God, what was the talk again? There's this talk from Quixel where they were talking about making something for Unreal Engine for Fortnite. Let me quickly see if I can find it again. I know how to find it, but it's just like a long way. Give me a sec here. Isn't it better to fill the color to avoid bleeding? Oh yeah, sorry. Here you go. It's filled now. We're just looking at the opacity map that's stored in the alpha. Unreal Engine for Fortnite. It's this talk that I referenced to. It's a talk about Project Talisman. That's what they call it. I'm not going to show it again because I've talked about this enough. But if you are interested in more procedural ways of texturing inside of Unreal, that's a good talk to reference to. For larger environments like this, what is more important, efficiency or quality? It is both, honestly. It is both. As an environment artist, especially as a junior environment artist, you need to be able to show that you use the correct pipelines to ensure some sort of scalability within your work, right? For example, a very dumb example for an environment artist would be that everything in your scene is made 100% unique, and that every asset is so unique that you can't even reuse it, right? I think what you want to do as an environment artist, at least show a little bit of trim sheets, at least show that you can do a little bit of stuff with tileable textures and all those kind of things, right? But you cannot sacrifice the quality for scalability, right? They kind of need to go hand in hand. Because if you can make stuff look really good with, let's say, a trim sheet and with tileable textures, but it looks like ass, then that's kind of not the point, right? Hello, hello, MSR. Hello, Sheila. Yeah, some good questions. Is that the trim for the new wood kit? No. So this is where the biggest change comes in. The new wooden kit doesn't use a trim anymore. The new wooden kit uses individual textures now. So, for example, if I go to these guys, I guess I can do it here. If I go in here and I give you a view of what the maybe. Oh no, that's a trim still. We don't need to look at that. So this is what these planks look like now. It is just unique data, right? It is just like unique data that is just specific to those planks, and then we can add additional layerings on top of it to kind of make them, I don't know, add variation and whatever. Because what I really wanted to go for was like maximizing the quality, right? And keep in mind that this is literally, I just slapped on like a smart material. This is nowhere near final quality for like the texturing. But at this point, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get everything into the scene. I wanted to start building stuff because I can still improve on the textures and all that kind of stuff later. That's super easy to do. Don't know if you heard that, but I think someone nearly crashed outside. Someone screeching their brakes. Oh my god. But yeah, so that's what I've been working on today. We've got like a bunch of new assets here. Just me playing around with like, like how we can place them into the scene, how modular they are. Yeah. It was almost like a scream. I know. I know. So your goal is to identify where you need more detail in textures. Um no, my goal for today was literally just to first get all the assets that I have been building into the engine so that I can start testing it. And that was the literal goal of today. Just have fun, test, test the kit. Because what I learned today, for example, is that when I was building some of these things, I was like, I am missing some elements to make my kit even more complete. That's the reason. That's the reason why we do these kind of tests, right? That's why iteration is important because iteration helps us to identify if we're missing something, and then we can go back and really quickly like add new stuff, right? So, for example, for these planks that are in the first texture pass, I knew so these are like all the textured ones. I have like big planks and small planks, right? These guys, pretty straightforward. I knew that I was going to need a lot of them anyway. That was fine. For the beams, I wasn't so sure. So I just got everything into the engine and I started building with them. And then I realized that I needed a couple of extra examples. So yeah, that was the goal for the day. And then I just had more fun like building additional level instances to get me kickstarted on like rebuilding like all the buildings again. Well, yeah. With Belgian road condition, I don't recommend drifting. Yeah. Um, it's clear with wood. In principle, one material is enough for wood, but what about more complex structures? Should we use vertex painting? It kind of depends, right? Like you can use vertex painting to blend multiple materials together. But sometimes if you have like more hard surface materials, let's say, then you can just assign like multiple material IDs um and then just assign them where needed, right? But for example, you're saying plaster and bricks, etc. So I mean, I have some of that in this scene as well. Where's a good example? Because I know that my shaders are kind of borked at the moment. Let me see. Does this one still work? Because I was having issues with my vertex color before, and I think that's because I switched to nanite and all that kind of stuff. Um, so I don't think I have a good example actually. Not currently in the scene, without having to like dive into my shaders, which does suck. Because I know, for example, um, yeah, if I'm not going to find anything, then that's okay. Let me have a last peek in here. Mesh paint. I mean, I can paint textures, but that's not going to be helpful. Yeah. So for more complex materials, you kind of want to set up like a vertex paint, right? I do have like a bunch of images that can kind of show the stuff off. That could give you an idea. Doo-doo-doo. Let me see. So that's a lot of stuff for the ground. I have some like wall stuff in here too. Yeah. So let's say this kind of stone wall, this is using like 3 texture variations that are blended between each other with using like vertex paint, right? That's an example if you want to blend stuff together. You can apply that principle on like whatever material that you want. Again, I would love to show off like, let's say, terrain painting, but everything is so ugly at the moment that we're just gonna ignore that. Anyway, I just wanted to show that off. So let's switch on back just a little bit. Yeah, thank you all for the questions. And yeah, I've been having a lot of fun getting back into this project. It's been really fun diving back into it. Really fun building like a bunch of different assemblies, basically, right? Like building all the individual pieces, um, and then yeah, we can kind of continue building and building and building. It's gonna be fun. Yeah, so I'm having a lot of fun during these. Yeah, like every Wednesday we do like a co-working cafe, so we do it for like 6 hours. And it's been really fun, honestly. Just hanging out with the community, working together on stuff. It's been really, really fun. Let's see. Infrared is asking, cool stuff. I've always wanted to do environment art in a religion, but I have no idea where to start. Where would you recommend? Don't start with environment art. Start by building assets. So make a single asset, you know, a single asset, and just get used to the game art pipeline. And that literally means um, modeling first, making a high poly, making a low poly, baking the high poly down onto the low poly, texturing it in substance, like all that kind of stuff, right? There are some good free tutorials on ArtStation if you're looking. ArtStation Learning, I think, in that tab you can find some like really good examples on where to start with an environment art. Yeah, so that's where I would start. Thanks for showing. No worries, no worries. And we're going to be doing some more live demos today as well. Maybe we'll do that first. Let's see. How do I want to structure this? Let's not do that first. I want to talk about some other stuff that I found. Because today what we'll be doing is I want to do a live demo of Malta's work. So we've been seeing Malta's work like evolve over like the last couple of months, right? It is a temple. Let me give you a sneak peek at least so that you know what the hell I'm talking about. So this is Malta's work that we'll be talking about today. This is not a picture. This is inside of Unreal Engine, so it's running real time. Look at this beauty. There are some issues like with the file transfer. I think some shaders got like screwed up. So ignore the checker map on like the landscape and the rocks. I swear to you, that is not what it looks like, but we'll have to deal with it. But yeah, what we'll be talking about is today is layering. Layering is something that I find super, super, super important for environment art. But for that, I don't want to start here. I want to start with something else. So I found this. This is a post from 10 years ago on Polycat. And this is from a concept artist that was talking about readability in your composition. And oh my god, I love myself some concept art inspired stuff. So we are going to dive into it together. What this post basically talks about is a lot of fundamental principles that we can use in environment art, right? Values, contrast, colors, shapes, like all those kind of things. I've been writing a lot about that stuff for our Academy pages as well. So I've been digging up like all these posts and kind of reading through it and kind of getting inspired by them. But yeah, I just wanted to show like a couple of examples, you know, just to help you construct like a clear idea of what your focal point should be in the scene. So the first thing is applying contrast around the focal point, right? So what this is talking about is you see like white fog and then you have like this black like area going in. Contrasts between values, dark and bright values, is something that can be really useful for drawing the player's attention, right? Of course, in concept art, they have like a little bit more freedom than we have. We still have to make it feel natural, right? So something like this is not going to necessarily apply. But the underlying thought process of where contrasting values are getting close to each other, super important, right? So that's like thing number one. I also love this one, like establishing like a clear path to the focal point by like using proper leading lines and also leaving in a space of rest. You can see that in the second example here, the path is sort of clean, compared to the rest that is like more detailed. Whereas in this one, there's a lot of detail going on. It's kind of hard to read where we're going. So that's also like another thing to keep in mind. This one, I often refer to this as the rule of thirds, right? So what the rule of thirds is let's say if you go to Unreal and you go to your cinematic viewport, which is like a little checkbox that you can tick, and then you can enable all these overlays. And the one that I always use is this grid functionality. This grid functionality basically just divides like your screen into three equal parts, right? And it gives you an idea of where your most important points in your composition need to be. And they need to be around these convergent points of where the grids basically cross each other, right? And that's basically what they're explaining here as well. And what that also does is it gives us more travel time in the scene, right? So I have like another example that we will talk about today, but let me quickly show it off here. Someone was making like an early block out. Same principle here, right? So what they had was just this. I applied the rule of thirds, the stuff that we just talked about. I moved the house more to the right. I added like a path that connects both of them, and now we're traveling through the scene, right? So yeah, we'll talk about that more in just a second. But yeah, 70-30, just like offsetting it. This can also apply, by the way, to your horizon line. So you never want your horizon line to be in the middle of the scene. That just looks awkward. You always want to have that offset, and that's where the rule of thirds can also help. So for example, here, again, in this example, you could either have like a high horizon line, like up here, or a low horizon line. However, if we're up in the mountains, it's more likely that the horizon line is going to be low compared to being high, right? Again, quickly blasting through this stuff, but yeah. And then this one. This one is especially important for what we're going to be talking about with Malta's work. Making sure that there is like a visual difference between the different layers within your composition, right? So they refer to it here as like the variety of visual intensity, and I think what they want, they refer to it as, everything here in this image is kind of trying to get your attention at an equal straight, let's say, right? Whereas if we in environment art, especially if we are very specific with where we put certain elements, and if we also separate them out by using fog and all that kind of stuff, we can actually focus more on the elements that we want to focus on. Yeah, and this is also a good one, just showing the path that people are going to travel, right? So that they can anticipate where they're going to go. Always really helpful. Especially for player leading in games. This is super, super helpful. What is very common is that you will have it gets referred to a lot of people by different things, but you kind of want to waypoint your way through like a level, right? Which is basically you walk through a level, you see like a nice vista point, and you're like, oh my god, I want to go there, right? And you implant that into the player's brain. Then you detour a little bit, and then you reveal that thing again, and now they're going towards it. And that is like, oh my god, very common thing that we do in games. It gets a little bit trickier when it comes to open world design, but yeah, in linear games especially, very common to do that. And again, here as well, like the rule of thirds, right? Like dividing your frame in three equal parts, and then like putting stuff on those lines, or ideally at those like intersections. And then here's some other stuff about values, and also about like balancing your frame. Yeah, a lot of really cool stuff here about about like art fundamentals, you know? And I know for a lot of you, this might be like, oh my God, this is so boring. You know, like this is like art theory. And it's just like, oh my God. But I can tell you that most of your advancements that you're going to make in your career are going to be based on all the stuff that we just talked about in this one post. Might sound ridiculous. Sure, you're going to learn about the technical skills and you're going to get better at like Substance and Unreal and blah, 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 blah. But to make visually interesting and pleasing images, this stuff is gold. So, yeah. Did I share the link? Yeah. Go check out that link for yourself. They also have like a Facebook group, which is like, oh my God, so like 2005 or whatever. But still, like a lot of great examples in there. So I just wanted to quickly discuss that too. I'll share the link again. Really cool to read about. I haven't even read through like what other people said about this. Dun, dun, dun. That's awesome. There's some people that I recognize from like when we were coming up in the industry. Josh Lynch. That's cool. What is this? Leading lines. Let's go. We're not going to go into that. But okay, this is basically a preamble for what I want to do here, right? So we talked a lot about having a better visual hierarchy, right? Giving the scene more depth and all that kind of stuff. I've done a quick pass on certain elements. So let me remove like the grid here so that we can actually see. And let me enable some of the changes that I've done, right? If we go back to like a week ago, one of my main complaints that I still had, and this is so difficult to explain, is that there was a lot of noise in the scene and it was all vying for your attention equally, right? What is the easiest thing that we can do without having to move anything is just introducing fog into the scene, right? You already have like a bunch of fog cards in your scene already. But what I've done is I added like a really big one as well, which basically just separates the background from the foreground a little bit, right? So if I were to hide this and then unhide it, you can kind of see what that does because it reduces the amount of detail that's going to be happening in the background and it pushes us to look more for detail in the foreground, right? So you can kind of see that I don't use fog in the foreground or barely anything. And then as soon as we hit that second layer, literally after the bridge, right? That's when we introduce that fog because it also does a good job of just like silhouetting the bridge as well. We could even probably tweak it like a little bit more and say put it here, right? Because now we have like these like rock piles and stuff. Maybe we don't need to see those. I want the focus to be purely on the bridge itself, right? So with putting these planes in like very specific locations, we can be very specific with where we want like a person to focus, right? And it gives some like nice volumetric effects in the scene as well. So that's that one. That is the big one, right? That is literally me separating the background from the foreground, right? With one layer, one sheet. Then there were a couple of other ones. Let me hide all of them and then see what they've done. I also did that in the background because I didn't want to. So the reason why I added that second one is because I didn't want to move this one up all the way here because I kind of like that we kind of saw the clouds almost like hugging the cliff sides, you know? So it's more for like a visual effect. But then I realized that in the background we were kind of missing some like fog in here, right? So I try to just get a small one in here. Pretty simple fix. And then the rest of them are honestly just more about adding visual depth in the foreground, right? Because I did realize in your scene, Malta, that you had volumetric fog already, but it was cut out from like camera distance. I'll show you what I mean. So if we go here, you can see you got a lot of beautiful volumetric fog, and you do that to like a local, some like local fog volumes, right? The issue with them is that if you go close, they just completely disappear. So these ones, you might as well, you could almost like remove them, and there's going to be like barely any visual difference here, right? You can kind of see, especially if you go into like your main shot here. There's like barely a visual difference. Like we get some darkening in the fog, but yeah. That one is mainly used for the god rays. I don't think so. Let me double check, right? Yeah, you get a little bit. But from the ones that I saw actually, you inverted the fall off. So you actually push the fog way lower instead of having it like up there, right? Anyway, that was like something that I noticed. So what I've done is just literally I took some of those cards that you have, and I just move them into place. So I literally have them like almost flat in the scene, and they just create like this nice mist kind of covering the sections underneath the bridge, right? And it kind of gives us a little bit more depth, a little bit more height as well. Let's see. What are the other ones that I added? Yeah, these are just like some small details, right? I think this one is a little bit more filling out of the background. Honestly, we can leave that disabled if we wanted to. And then some like slight ones in the foreground as well, because it is, in general, it is honestly quite nice to have some volumetrics in any of your areas, right? So you can kind of use them in like a very subtle way, like you're already doing, right? Obviously, because this is a card, we kind of need to be careful with where we place it, but yeah, we can kind of create that to like good effect. To kind of create like a little bit of like, like early morning dew frost kind of stuff hanging on the path, right? Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Let's see. Arvid is saying I might be out of place, but I think the wooden beam in the foreground, I think it should be placed a bit closer somewhere else because now the camera angle is intersecting with the bridge at the start. I think you're right, but I also do know that McFadden is still like reworking those beams as well. So I'm expecting that those are going to change. But it is a good point. Thank you for pointing that out. Um, this scene suffers from the uncontrollable rainbow. Neil Blevins has a great article about that. I have not read that article, but I would love to check it. If I were to make a um a guess as to what that means, is that you have a lot of different colors in your scene, and they're all like equally saturated, right? So let's have a quick look. Let's see what we can do here, because we can actually just go into, sorry, let me just put that up here. You're controlling it through like colors in here. Okay, no worries, we can work with that. So what if we literally just go into your, let me see, how does that work? Doesn't do anything. Am I reading this wrong? Hmm. Oh, flag rope. No, that's not what I want. I don't want to update the flag rope. Uh, okay. So what I can. Let's see if we can quickly find it. Flaggy boy. Material instance flag. There we go. Okay. So what can we do here? So if we just desaturate them all just a little bit. Really don't want to desaturate them all the way at least. Don't want to be doing that. Let's just have a couple of quick clicks. So if we just go and desaturate like all of them, that's the rotation vector. No, I don't want to. I touched the panning. Dang it. Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to be doing that, Tim. There we go. No. Okay, we might just have to ignore that because Control Z is also not working. Anyway. Yeah, and I think now we're struggling with it that they're like too light as well. Nah. Anyway, we're not gonna be worried about that too much. But that would be something to definitely try out is maybe desaturating some of the colors. Yeah, you can see it like now the shader is fucked up, so you can thank me for that, I guess. Sorry, Malta. The flags are scaring me now. Yeah, I know, I know. Looking to say in the fog is a great solution to create that depth and helps create a clearer focal point. Yep, it does, and I use that in like almost every scene. So whenever I have to give feedback for like any team challenges, for example, that's why we have it built into the starter content of the team challenge. Is fog is a super important thing to create depth, to follow metrics. Like it's so good. It's such a useful tool. So yeah, definitely use it and almost think about it. The way that I think about a scene is I almost try to see it in not what it is, but what shapes it represents, right? So, for example, when I was looking at the bridge, I literally just had a look at it and I just only saw foreground and the bridge was part of the foreground and you have midground and then the top staircase is background, right? So those are like the three layers that I want to work in. And then I just found like a nice way to like separate them all. What's your thought on separating with the colors if they actually are stronger than the rest of the environment instead of desaturating them? What's your thought on separation with the colors if they actually are stronger than the rest of the environment? Well, so here's the thing though, like if you want to create we have multiple levers that we can pull, right? Um values, we talked about it before, that's one of them, right? So that's like the intensity of the light, let's say, right? That's like one way that we can um pull focus towards like a certain area. Then we have the saturation of the colors. Then we also have like the amount of colors, right, that we have. So there's like a lot of different levers that we can pull. So let's say if you cannot desaturate your colors, then you would almost have to look at like, okay, what if we can pull light more towards the focal point and remove light from the rest of the area, right? So that we can push the focal point somewhere else. Like Luca is saying, like light and shadow, definitely a good thing to go for first. Yeah. But I will also say that whenever you say like, hey, if that is not an option, the thing that I'm hearing, or like the first thing that I'm hearing is, okay, we need to take creative liberties sometimes and say, like, okay, maybe these banners are like very bright and colored in the scene. We could potentially like start removing them, right? That's like an option too, where let's say we have like less of them wherever they're just like noisy, right? That could also be another option. So let's say we do something like we can kind of keep those because even just like reducing the amount of them is already like pretty helpful, right? Because even with this, we already have like a way clearer insight of like, hey, the stuff that's actually important is here in the foreground, right? And then Malta's gonna hate me for this, but we're just gonna ignore it. And then maybe we can increase it around like the focal point, right? So placement, like look at us, you're on point. So grouping and clumping and having more clusters together, that's also a way of controlling where people are gonna look, right? I could make some extrusion volumes for the flag to control where they go a bit neater. Potentially, I don't think you need to do like anything fancy, you know? Like I think you have all the tools here and it's just you need to think more about the placement of them potentially. Right? Because now all the detail is kind of like surrounding the asset and we have less of them in areas that matter less, right? That's also a good point of just controlling the chaos. But sometimes what I tend to do is like, okay, we're just gonna move this all down and then just see what it looks like, right? Look at it from a distance. Did that help the noise in the scene? Perhaps it did. And we can apply the same thing to the foliage as well, right? Because now we've done a good job with the flags. Maybe the next step would be the foliage. So having, again, I'm thinking in shapes, right? So whenever I think in shapes, I'm like, okay, if we then have bigger bigger clusters of tree, but maybe let's see, probably foliage painter, right? So I'm just gonna select all of them. Just gonna do a quick hash job on this, just to give you an idea of what that could mean, right? So not that big, and then we just start removing them, and we keep certain clusters still there, right? But now, again, what I'm doing is I'm trying to reduce the amount of individual clumps that are just scattered through the scene, and I'm merging them all into like single volumes, right? So this tree that I made bigger is now a bigger foliage volume that is going to look more interesting because it is a single cluster, right? Or it's like more clustered together. And you could still put your foliage like close next to it, right? But then we're packing everything together, right? And packing everything together is also a good way of allowing a viewer or a player to immediately identify what that group of objects is, right? So you can kind of see what this is already doing, right? So let's take an extreme example. What if we just remove all of it and then we just like reconstruct it with like manual placement, right? And then we're gonna have a look. I do want to keep some semblance of like this staircase here, right? I do want to see the entrance of the staircase and then maybe see like a second section here, where maybe, I don't know, we're just gonna remove some stuff here. And then maybe oh, this is landscape. Hmm. And then maybe we can increase like the viewability of like this staircase here, because now this opened up. I would move this up, like open this up a little bit more and show more of the staircase so that we can actually think about what we said before on the polycount thread, right? Like you want to see where the player is going to go. You want to be able to follow the path along. And then we can be very picky. Let's say now we can start saying like, okay, oh, that's like a static mesh foliage. Well, we can do. Let's have a look. So we just disable this. I'm just gonna pick a random one. Okay, so let's say this one. I kind of want to see what is a big boy. Okay, we can kind of work with that, and then we can continue to paint in those clusters. You know? Oh god, maybe. Okay, let's go bananas here. Set the density to something that can actually work. And then we can be way more picky with what we want to do. Same can potentially be applied in the foreground as well. But hopefully you see where this is going, right? So we are being way more deliberate with where we place our assets so that we can almost like cluster them together in like nice clusters, right? So let's do the same thing here in the foreground, just as a final example. Let's see. What do we have? I put them all down in a single click? That's not what I want. Just gonna want this one. Right, so maybe there. It would be nice that I can place them in here, but these, yeah, they can only be used in here. Yeah, well, we'll just have to do it the annoying way then. Oh, you know what? Let me just grab this sucker. Because we only do care about, we're talking about shapes anyway. So ignore my abhorrent scaling and you know what else I'm doing? But I'm more talking about like the shapes anyway. And we can move on to some of the other pieces. Some of the other people after that. I don't want to remove the bridge too much, so maybe we'll do something like this. And even though these pieces of foliage are like really noisy by themselves, right? Because we kind of cluster them together, like it becomes easier to look at because they kind of form like one single volume or one single shape, right? Yeah. So a couple of good things to work with here. Um, yeah. Oh, sneaky decal on here. But yeah, hopefully that was a good example of how to think about it from like a more fundamental perspective, where we try to distill things into shapes and clusters and lines and all those things because yeah, it's super helpful to be able to look into it that way. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I'm pretty happy with that. There's more changes that I want to make, right? Especially around like let's say the base color intensity and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of variation happening there where okay, let's do a last thing. I'll stop myself. Hopefully it's a quick fix. So if I go in here, because I don't like how intense the base color is, we are just, that's not what I was expecting. Is that just translucency then? It might just be translucency. Just tinting the leaves. Yeah, there's a lot of controls. This is very quick and very hasty, but let's see. Saturation, brightness. There we go. And you can kind of see what that does, right? Like compared to what it was before, very demanding. And I'm literally looking at like the left side of the screen, right? Very demanding in terms of like it is very different from the values around it, right? So what I'm trying to do is like I'm trying to look at like, okay, what are some of the values that make more sense? And what I'm literally doing is I'm trying to push those values to more towards the values that it's surrounded by. So yeah, and we can see we make it like more consistent. We're easing the sort of detail that's being asked, or like the attention that's being asked from the player, right, or the viewer. Yeah, was looking at it the whole time. That's good. Paying attention. I like it. But yeah, good stuff. And I know that we talked about a lot of stuff here, Malta. You've got solid foundations, right? Even though like I'm not showing off your scene in the best possible light, with the broken textures and all that kind of stuff. I don't know why that happened, but you're doing a good job, man. This is just stuff that's like really easy to tweak, right? It comes down to little placements here and there, and then yeah, it's gonna be good. So Nice one, man. And thank you for sharing your work as well. Really appreciate it. I love to do more of these live demos. I'm hoping that we can do them more in the future within the Discord, and then we'll set something up where people can share their files. I think that could be like really, really fun. So yeah, thank you for being a crash test dummy for this. So yeah, massive shout out to McFal. Give a loud applause. I don't really have like a soundboard going for like applause, but hey. Seems already looking great. It will be amazing when it's finished. Yes, I agree. Cool. Hold on. Before I do this, let me. Where is it in here again? I keep changing the location. Let me already send you a DM with this. Oh, it's already open. There we go. I was a bit confused seeing you actually inside Malta's project. So it's a new thing. Yeah, I think it could be more fun, because there's only for some people I realized that it would be nice that I can just like go into the project and actually do stuff rather than doing like an overpaint. I think this is more it's also more engaging. Um he sold it for me, it's his now. Oh, is that approval? Okay, thanks. Raise 2 publishing it on our station, I guess. Oh my god, that would be savage. Okay, cool. We're not gonna save any of that. That's totally fine. Corporate takeover. No, there's enough of those shenanigans happening, unfortunately, in the industry already. So I will not take part in that. Yeah, thank you, Ian Malta, for sharing your work. Arvid, HR wants a word. I am HR, so yeah, that's I guess the downside and the benefit of running your own small company is that I am HR. This way can even be more better. You might notice additional things that aren't visible in the render. Yeah, it is true. The main concern that I have is potential scaling, right? Like scalability. So we will have to come up with a way that, let's say, every week we'll do like 3 people that submit their work or something, right? I mean, I'm pulling a number out of my ass right now, but something where it limits the amount of people that we actually have a look in. Because otherwise, I mean, I spend a lot of time talking about this now. Let's say we have like 20 people to feedback. Ooh, yeah, it's going to be a long night. But I do think there's a lot of value in it. And then also, if we have like people literally being there live, being able to talk to me, that is awesome. What if someone has like 8K textures and the whole file is like 25 gigs? Well, so if you have 8K textures to begin with, then I will roast you for that because we don't use 8K textures, or like it's unheard of in games for like 8K textures. Because I was looking up the file size for like an 8K set of textures or maybe a single texture, and it's like 250 megabytes just for one texture. Ah. Yeah, we use 16K. Oh my god. Okay, back of the class right now. Tobji, you've been banned to the back of the class. Come on. I will make my project bigger than GTA 5. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, we do like the crisp detail. Yeah. Yeah, and then especially when like Unreal Engine doesn't even load it in with like your virtual texturing, right? Because it can't fit it in the buffer. Yeah. Yeah, but I am really looking forward to having like live conversations with people and all that kind of stuff. We'll see how the format goes, but yeah, it is so beautiful. I know, I know. You can actually make stuff look beautiful with okay, quote unquote, low resolution textures. A dragon with 200 UDIMs, all 8K for 2 seconds. Yeah, I mean, some of the crazy shit that you see done in like VFX and like the movie industry, that's like stuff that we can't even dream of, you know? I saw so when I was working at Ubisoft, we had a presentation from Louis Guggenberger, and he has done some of the biggest ships in Star Wars, right? Like if you can think about like the most iconic recent like Star Wars ships and all that kind of stuff, he has a hand in them. Really cool to see. But also, oh my god, the amount of UDIMs, I can't even remember the number, right? But like the amount of textures that they were using for just like these ships was just like fucking mental, Especially if you come from like a game background where up until that point, the biggest texture that I've probably have seen is 2K, you know? Don't they use streams for launch ships? I can't remember like the fully like the workflow that he did. He might have stuff on his like art station, to be honest. But I don't think so, because here's the thing: like for VFX, they don't really care about performance, right? Because everything just gets rendered down anyway. Um, yeah, they don't have like the massive performance restrictions that we have in games comparative to what they're doing, right? Because everything just gets run through like a render farm with like hundreds of PCs like in servers like rendering it anyway. Yeah, we only care if it starts rendering or not. Yeah, that's pretty much my understanding as well. I'm pretty sure that there must be, let's say, if you're working on like a big production and you're literally talking about like 10,000 assets that need to be rendered and all that kind of stuff, there is probably some performance optimization that can happen when you don't slap a ridiculous amount of UDIMs on your assets, right? But I don't know. I don't know. One day to render one frame. Well, that was my student life. When I was doing my first high poly car and I wanted to do a render in Mental Ray. Uh, yeah, that was literally 24 hours for a single screenshot. It was crazy. It was getting to the point where if you saw an issue in your render as it was rendering, right? It was too late. You were rendering, and if you cancel the render, you've lost like 10 hours now. So it's like, okay, I guess we're just doing this. I don't want to think about it. I already despise rendering in Arnold. Yeah. I mean, honestly, God, this is crazy. In the 10 years that I've been in the games industry, right? And all technology improvements that I've seen, it is freaking mental. Like how much quicker rendering is. Even the stuff that I was just doing on screen just a second ago, right? Having Unreal Engine open and having that scene render in like, I don't know, 60 frames a second while running OBS and having like Photoshop and all that kind of stuff open was like unthinkable. Especially, oh my god, especially on like student hardware. No way. No way. I think I even literally destroyed one of my GPUs, like trying to render something. My first 3D mentor was a VFX artist. He opened one of his projects, and it was a mountain with near 100 UDIMs. Yeah, yeah, man. That's like, oh god, that is a even if we found like a good workflow to do with UDIMs in like games, right? That is a dream that is like nowhere near to achieving. That is crazy. If you think about it, there. Oh, that would be actually interesting. I'm thinking about it in terms of like, let's say that mountain, right, with 100 UDIMs. There have probably in recent years, there probably have been games that have shipped with less textures than that. Like for the entire game, right? I mean, I know some like crazy examples, let's say the Ascent, right? Where they probably just have like, I don't know. I know that they are super, super efficient because Thor Freak is like a beast when it comes to that stuff. And I know that for the most part, they just use like one texture for everything in that game. So yeah, it's always interesting to me that you then hear a person using like 100 UDIMs for a mountain, and then here we are in game dev, like trying to do things with like one texture for like an entire game. How often are UDIMs used in games? Almost never. Never. I have never seen a UDIM. I have heard, I have heard, and this is from all the people in my entire career that I talked to, I have heard maybe one or two instances where they did use a UDIM. So yeah, it's just we don't use UDIMs in games. I mean, I'm making like a general statement, right? There will always be people that will use like UDIMs or whatever, but it is not time for that, Sergio. It is not time. The amount of times that I had to fight people that use UDIMs in the team challenge, unreal. I used UDIMs with RGB masking, but it was more for Unreal Engine. Offline rendering. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that makes sense, right? Like if you're doing offline rendering, like you don't care about like having it run at like 90 frames a second, right? So at that point, don't care. We're not talking about games at that point. But yeah, for games, yeah. If you want to have like high performing games like that run at like a good frame rate, yeah. We're so restricted by performance that like we have to literally squeeze every bit out of it that we can. Devil is saying, I want to make a sci-fi modular kit, but struggling with how to think about an approach and an optimized way for textures because if I use trims, then I can't bake bevels. They need to be geometry. That is fine. Looking to the mid-poly workflow, that is oftentimes how it's done now in the games industry. Some common examples are Star Citizen. They use it everywhere. The first Alien Isolation uses it everywhere. There's a bunch of sci-fi examples that use the same thing. So they don't bake bevels. They just have like pure geometry with like weighted normals. That's what they do. So yeah, look that up. That'll be a good point to start. I will send a tutorial on that exact topic from my former lead at Playgrounds. Oh, that has the wrong thumbnail, but I think the download might still be good. Come on, let me paste it. There we go. Mm-hmm. I only sleep next to my laptop when my car was rendering. Oh god, yeah. Yeah, the car assignment that we had to do in school, yeah, that was just like, okay, I guess I press start and then I'll go to sleep. And then I would wake up the next day and then it was like, oh, we're 50% done. And you can't do anything with your laptop. It's crazy. I was even debating at that point to just buy like tokens for like a render farm to just send to a render farm and all that kind of stuff and just let it render there and just get like an image back. But yeah, I was so confused by how that worked. So yeah. For the city scene, I didn't even sleep. I fell asleep after feedback. Yeah, I think the city scene as well, like my first ever, oh, let me see. So, okay, we're gonna take a short trip down memory lane. We're not gonna make this too long because I still want to do feedback as well. So let me have a quick look here. So if we go to work, work. Oh my god, there's so much junk in here. This is literally all my old stuff. Oh my god. Uh, oh, there we go. Got the car assignment. Okay, let me bring some stuff on screen here. So the car assignment that took me 24 hours to render, and I've done like a little bit of like post processing. That's not it. Why did I click that? Um, that's it. Look at this beauty. Come on. I want to get my money's worth. This took me 24 hours to render, people. Look at it. That is so crazy. And now, literally this amount of polys, you just slap that into Unreal and it's running at like 60 frames a second. That is mental. And it looks as good, or it can look as good. Let's see. And there was like another my first city scene, right? Like my first 3D city scene. Here we go. Little baby Tim doing this stupid thing in the middle of the night. I remember this. I was, and this is all just like photo textures and all that kind of stuff bashed on like very simple geometry, right? But this is the first introduction that we had to like unwrapping and all that kind of stuff, right? Um, and I remember, I don't remember what the button was exactly, but I remember that there was a button to, God, what was it called again? This was in 3ds Max, and it was a button where it would automatically pack all your textures that you use from like different locations and like move it into one folder or something like that. I thought that was it. I don't know. I pressed that button and literally, I kid you not, this is like the night before the hand in, right? So I think next morning, 8 o'clock, I need to present this or like hand this in or something like that. I can't remember. And I press that button and it literally fucks up every single UV in my entire scene. And I'm like, okay, no worries. I can just like Control Z and then it's fine, right? It's like, nope, Control Z doesn't work. Like, okay, that's fine. I can just close it and I can reopen it and then it's gonna be fine, right? Because I have not saved anything, right? What do you think happens? I reopen it, still fucked. I'm like, okay, no, no, no. I'm prepared for this. I have a backup. That backup is also fucked because now it's pointing to like a different folders all over the place where those textures don't exist anymore. Oh. So I had a mental breakdown, like a small one. And then I literally just spent like the next 10 hours, like all through the night, and just try to fix it up. So this is what you're seeing. This is after the fix, right? After I redid everything. Because at that point, keep in mind, this is the first lesson that we do with UVing. So I was just like on the struggle bus trying to even make this work, right? Um, but hey, we got there. We got there. Fuck's sake. What a ride. So yeah, hopefully that gives you some hope, you know, that we all struggle with these like tiny little things in the beginning, and then you get better and you learn and you get better and you learn more, and it's, yeah, hopefully at some time, we can actually make something. We got there, but at what cost? Oh my god, yeah, yeah. There's a couple of moments where, because I was so exhausted, I slept on the floor in front of the classroom, to give you an idea. Um, and I think it's in part because the school was like really intense, and I was also like not a great student up until that point. But also maybe time management could be better. You know, that will definitely be a part of it. Where maybe I was playing a little bit too much Guild Wars 2 because that just came out, and then yeah, I had to pay for that by like doing an all nighter before my exam. So, well, we don't talk about that part. We don't talk about that part. Let's ignore that. Okay. Enough yapping about all that stuff. Let's actually do some reviews. Oh my god, and you just got a sneak preview from like all the old stuff that I still have. Some stuff I don't even remember what it was about. Interestingly enough. Oh my god, my first portfolio. I even got some like pictures from I even got some pictures from my schedule at school still here. This is literally a folder that just contains everything that I could find. So yeah, there's probably like a bunch of like random stuff in there. Anyway, enough yapping about that. Um, there's so much DIA assignments. Oh yeah. The school is full on, but I don't. I will say I don't regret it. You know, I have through the years, through running Beyond Extend, I have seen what other schools have to offer and what people come out as learning from those schools. I'm very happy that I went to DIA, and also for the price that the school offers. Man, that is hard to beat, especially for like a Belgian student, right? So cannot complain. Really happy because honestly, I wouldn't be here without the university. So hi, let's give a last shout out there. Um, oh, I cannot stop myself. Here's one more image. My first piece of environment art. Well, actual in engine environment art. Man, UDK. So this is Unreal Engine 3 for people that are not uh old. Yeah. You do stylized environments too? I did do them like all the way back. We had to do like stylized environments as well. Yeah, let me see. Do I have like a final render of this? I do have it somewhere. It will probably take me too long to find it though. I'm just gonna have a quick browse. The Unk engine. Oh my god. No, I don't have like a final render for this. I don't think so. That's a shame. I do know that I have them somewhere, just not in this specific folder. Bum, bum, bum. Final browse. Nah. All right. Let's move on. So retro. Yeah. So retro. Oh my god. And Windows XP. Was this XP? Wasn't this Vista? I can't remember. I for the life of me, I cannot remember if it was XP or Vista. Right? Because Vista was the first one where you had the fancy glass like things. I don't know. It's been too long. This was 2014, by the way. It's like 12 years ago. There's a bunch of tools in my taskbar as well that like people will also not recognize. Like I think Endo is still in there, like Dedo, the old Quixel stuff. Marmoset 2. Oh. The website with the modular kit information has so many other cool articles. The website with the modular kit information has so many other cool articles. Thanks! That is my website! That is literally our website. I appreciate you saying that. Anyway, let's continue on to some feedback. So, you know the drill. If you are signed up to get feedback, let's get some raised hands. If you want to go first, we'll talk about your work first, and then we'll talk about like anyone else. Paid actor for sure. Love it. So yeah, feel free to raise your hands if you want to go first. Look at going first. Nice. Feel free to keep raising your hands, and it will work through it one by one. Prasan is going second. Jack of Diamonds. Top G. Cool. Okay. During this, if you oh wait. No. I thought you were talking about like the article that I sent. No, I don't own EXP points. No. I am very familiar with the people that do own it though. For example, the article that I sent, or the tutorial that I sent, right? From Luan, he is co-owner of EXP Points. No, I do not own EXP Points. The one you sent is EXP Points. Yeah, I sent like an earlier article as well. My bad. Anyway, so Luca, let's have a look at your work. Let me bring up the Discord as well, get some context. I think the main question here was basically just like, hey, um, so you took part in a challenge, right? Like in the contest that was from the rookies, right? There were 84 entries in total, 15 finalists were selected, and the goal was to get into those 15 people. Of course, you can put in more work, but in comparison to the other in the other entries, I thought I had it. So I asked you, like, what are the judging criteria, right? Because from what I could tell immediately, I think you've done a fantastic job on the texturing, right? But it is really simple. The prop itself is really, really simple, right? If I were to give my feedback, that would be what it initially would come down to, right? I have no clue what other people have done in the challenge. I have no point of comparison, right? But that would be the first iteration, like my first gut feeling of it. So yeah, because I think overall it does look nice. Like I think you've done a good job on the texturing, even though I spotted a nasty seam here. Got to be careful about those. But that's like a relatively minor, right? Um, but yeah, I would also say this is also a thing that I found from like technical perspective. Like always fill up your UV space. Do not ever leave like this amount of empty space. Literally, this is just taking all the UVs, stretching them out, making sure that the UVs are filled. Because you're just adding more resolution. And there's no such thing as like being over texel density is never a bad thing. Texel density is kind of a rough measurement, and the closer we can get to it, the better. If it's more, even better, right? If it's more and it makes sense for the prop, then yeah. But yeah, basically, literally, this is just like wasted space at this point, right? So you're saying 15%, or let's say 20% of my texture is just unused. So yeah. So I would definitely, yeah, if I were to give some feedback in terms of like the competition, right? If we go back to that, I would definitely say that most of it for me just comes down to the complexity of the asset itself. That would be probably like the biggest determinant. I would also say here's like a couple of things that you could do to like push it to the next level. I think from a lot of what a lot of people can see is looking at this and you ask any random person to tell you what it is, no one's going to be able to tell you it, right? So I think we can kind of use that to our advantage and then say like, okay, let's make it into like a sort of like museum kind of like exhibit something, right? Maybe have like a card in front of it, or have like a tag where it gets auctioned and then it explains what it is or something like that, right? And there's two benefits. We add a simple storytelling element, right? Because it's either a museum or it's an auction or whatever. So we give it a place in an actual real world location. And we also help people understand what it actually is that we're looking at. So those are a couple of things that you could definitely improve on. Um, let's see. You're asking what textile density would you use for a portfolio piece? So yeah, it's a good question. And the reason why I don't have like an exact number for you is because on ArtStation, it's always going to be higher than any real life game scenario. So I would say as long as you make it look good, right? And you have a, a pixel density that kind of works for you, or like a texel density that works for you, then that's all you need, right? I would say at least like aim around like 1K per meter, right? That's what I would say. But I can guarantee you most of the props, especially on ArtStation, are going to be way above that. right? Because everyone's trying to go for like that nice crispy detail and all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, I would say 1K is probably the minimum for, especially for props, right? Because you have to think about it from a perspective of what is this portfolio piece trying to show off, right? With a prop, especially a simple prop like this as an example, right? You have to 100% nail the texturing and make it super, super accurate and super detailed and have a lot of layers and all that kind of stuff. Because in shape complexity, there's not too much to go on, right? It's not really, yeah, we can't really latch onto it in that way. So yeah, that's where the textures need to be good. But honestly, I'm gonna say this out loud, and I've said this before. I'm not the best person to ask for very in-depth, detailed texture feedback. That would probably warrant looking up like a bunch of like references and like really going into detail and like trying to suss out like the layers of history that have been caked onto this asset, right? Yeah, nice. I hope that makes sense. So there's a couple of things for you that can be improved. But yeah, don't feel bad about like not being in like the winning category for a challenge, right? It is it is honestly always good to participate in a challenge and to just finish it, because you never know who's going to be looking at it and who's going to be impressed even if you don't win a prize, right? So keep that in mind. Keep doing challenges, keep putting your work out there, and the traction, or I don't know, like the exposure or whatever you want to call it, that's going to come, you know? Yeah, like the other noob is saying. Yeah. Finishing is a skill, 100%. And you can just be proud of just like already finishing it, 100%, because a lot of people aren't even getting to that point. And challenges are good motivation. Yes, they are. Did anyone say team challenge, huh? Getting closer. I can feel it. I can feel the hype train starting. Is it too early? Is this like cyberpunk levels of like anticipation? Okay, let's continue moving on. So Parsani, you want to get this done in a week, which is totally fine. Which is totally fine. But that does mean that you kind of restrict the amount of stuff that I can say about it, right? So if you only set yourself like a deadline of like 1 week, I would honestly focus on presentation polish, right? We Oh my god, this stuff that we talked about in the beginning, right? Where we did the art fundamentals review and all the stuff that we talked about with like Malta's work, super relevant to your work as well, right? So go back, let's do that stuff again if you weren't there. Super relevant to you. Um, I think if you want to add one more thing, I would definitely, like we said last week, spend it on adding some sort of like color element to the middle of the scene. Just having some sort of color pop, like I don't know, blue scarf or blue something that gives us like a contrasting color in the scene. That's what I would focus on. And the rest of it, honestly, maybe there's some easy wins, like maybe you've made assets that you're not using. Maybe there's more stuff in the background that you can use. You have like a whole bunch of planks and like cardboard stuff here. Maybe it could be fun to use it more in the scenes, make it a little bit more chaotic. Maybe that's some stuff that you can do. But honestly, like a week, pretty short in the amount of time, right? So I wouldn't necessarily focus on building like a bunch of new content. I would really focus on building more content with the stuff that you already have. That's what I would focus on. And then just focus on the presentation. Really go into color correction, try to really tweak the colors, get some color contrast in there, and really focus on those elements. Um, Devil is asking, are workshops a new thing on Beyond Extend? No, actually, we've been running workshops for years now. We have like a significant back catalog of workshops. If you go to our website, for example, you can kind of see like how many workshops we have done over the past couple of years. Let me just give you like a quick overview, right? Because we've done some work on the actual website so that you can actually see them in one page. But yeah, these are all the workshops that are available. Like if you like, I do have like, of course, I have like all the workshops unlocked, right? But these are all the ones that we have available, and there's like four more in the works that are being edited by myself right now. So yeah, we have a ton of them coming on. So yeah. And of course, like a lot of these, if you just go to the website and you're not a member, you can actually check out the ones that are just like publicly available to you without having to become a member or anything like that. You can just check them out. They're all free. Like a lot of them are free. So you can just check them out. Oh sorry. Wrong thing here. So should I add more contrast? I would say look at last week. A lot of those comments are still going to be relevant to this week. Sorry, wrong thing again. Yeah. So I would definitely say look at the comments that we made last week, Parzani. And then, yeah. How do we participate in upcoming team challenges? So if you are a community member, you will get notifications and all that kind of stuff when we open the team challenges up to you. So yeah, we will be launching the opening of those in October. September, October is like the timeline that we have for the next challenge. So it's still a little bit out, but it's going to be there really quick. So that's when we open the next team challenges. I'm looking forward to it. Cool. Thank you, Parzani. Let's continue on. Who do we have next? Let me scroll up a little bit. Jack of Diamonds. Hey, we get to the topic of today. Jack, you're having some doubts over between do I keep this as a diorama or do I make it a full scene instead, right? It's a good question. So, I think that it is honestly not worth in like scaling it up to like a full scene just for the sense of scaling it up to a full scene, right? I don't think we're going to squeeze a lot out of it. I think you can make this like a really cool presentation if we just take it from a more what's the best word? Like a graphic design perspective. That's what I would say. So, do like a cutout, do a fade out on the water, and then do some like graphical elements behind it or something like that. Do something in those lines, and then you can make like a really interesting like diorama presentation. Because honestly, I know that like making a full environment is going to be like a lot of work, and you're going to have to do terrain and then maybe some background elements and trees and all that kind of stuff. But I would say it's not worth it, honestly. Hold on, that auto noob. Let me make you mod just a sec, so that you can share a link if you wanted to. Yeah, let me dive into a question because there was some more content there, right? So would you stick with a diorama or simply add a few additional shots, or do you think it would be worth expanding into a complete environment? Because you were saying that it feels like there's too much going on for a diorama, and to present it properly, it probably needs several additional camera angles. You could actually make a couple of different like camera angles already, right? Within this environment, without having the need to make it like a full environment. That would be my thing. Let's have a look here. So Sia just shared a link. This is from Sophie Singer. Some nice graphical elements being implemented, right? You can do some cool stuff with these sort of elements. You could even play around with like a shape in the background or something like that, or having like a color element. There's some really cool stuff that you can do with this sort of presentation. Yeah. And this is only one example, right? You could also keep it like more clean and just like work with like clean fades and then have like a darker background or something like that. You can kind of make that work too. But I would say that in most cases, it is not worth scaling up a diorama to an environment in terms of like the cost benefit that you're going to get from it. Because technically all we're getting when you create like a full environment is just background trees and background terrain and all that kind of stuff, right? I don't think you're going to add like anything else. Yeah, which by itself isn't that much, but to make it look good, you have to set up materials and all that kind of stuff still, right? So yeah, I don't think it would be worth it. But also, I do want to say, and this is where I'm going to slightly contradict myself, right? Like, if you then feel like, hey, I would prefer to make it a full environment because I feel better with that. And I think in my case, it would look better on my portfolio. And I like the way that that shows off. Follow your gut, right? Um, because these sessions, they're always going to be focused on getting you to the end of the road while the high quality road as possible, right? So they're always going to be focused on like the production angle of it rather than what you want to do for your portfolio. So yeah, there's my 2 cents. Yeah, just two sides of a similar coin. Because yeah, man, I think this is gonna look nice whether you make it or keep it as a diorama or not, right? A couple of things because I can't help myself. I know this is work in progress, but yeah, change the stuff up, right? Like don't have any straight lines, break it all up, make it nice and organic. Ooh, yeah, very cool stuff though. I really like it. Let me just add that to the thing, right? So it's a good reminder. No straight lines ever. Lucas is also saying looking great. Yes, yes, it is. Yeah. And thank you for the nice comments, people. It's always appreciated. Always showing the guests on screen some love. Always appreciate that. So yeah, thank you for showing your work, Jack. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to add them to your thread and I'll have a look at them. Or if you want to ask me a question privately as well, feel free to do so. Right. And with that, we're gonna keep moving on to the next person. So Moment is next, and then we have Abdu. So let me organize people here. Should have done that in the start. I think this is gonna be a quick question. Well, first of all, let's have a look at the water. Because the water is looking ace, man. Like the improvements that you've done to the water looks really good. Yeah, I really love all the additions. Kind of see it here as well, right? Like it's way more consistent. The water looks really nice. You have some like nice reflections coming in. It's looking really good. Um, one small nitpick, right? Keep thinking about the consistency between this water and that water, right? If you have ripples in this pool, then have them in the small puddles as well, so that we create like a consistent feel, right? Consistency is key when it comes to this stuff. But your question, come on. Your question was also more about the clothes as well. And let me see what your specific question was again. Finally fixed the cloth physics and I got it working. I guess for this week, how do the clothes look on the laundry wire? Are the baby clothes too small? I don't think they're too small. I have no issues with the scale whatsoever. I think the only thing that is like really nicely done in the other ones is that they follow the curve, and this is just like this is almost like a balloon, just like sticking on top of it, right? I want to see it. I want to see it dragging, being dragged by like gravity, right? So it's fine if you have it like hanging over the line, but yeah, keep it a little bit tight because now it's almost like a plasticky kind of thing. That's like the main thing that I would say. So, is there a way to have moving normals in water decals? That is a good question. And I cannot answer that because Unreal Engine has changed their whole decal system. and I do not know. So the closest that I've gone is that I looked at like the dark ruins, like the watershed that they have, right, to kind of see what they've done. But that is just like a body of water, right? That's not an actual decal. But at least the stuff that I looked into, maybe they have some decals lying around as well. Whereas before it would just work like any other decal, right? You could have like a padding normal on top of it, and that would work just fine. But I don't know how that works with the new decal system that they added. So I can't really help there with those specifics. Feel free to ask them in the technical chat in the Discord. Maybe some other people can. So yeah, unfortunately, can't help with that specifically. Yeah, there were planes. I thought so, right? I mean, to be well, no, you kind of can't. I mean, you could, but that would be too much work, honestly. So yeah. What did they change with the decals? Okay, so when I'm talking about what did they change with the decals, this is not something recent. This is just because I have not done anything recent with decals in Unreal that they changed. I think when did they change like the whole decal rendering system? Was that Unreal Engine 5 or was that like 5.4 or something like that? They basically changed the whole way to set up decals. Like all the materials and all the responses and all that kind of stuff changed. So the all the knowledge that I have on decals is sort of invalidated by those updates because you have to set them up in a different way. Yeah. Other than that, I like where it is going. I really like all the additional details that you added too. Like these small details, they do make it right. And the water is such a big part of the scene that it is worth investing some time into. So great stuff, man. Great stuff. Kazuki is asking, how did you get that water puddle with the floor? Um, I think that is probably just going to be some simple vertex painting where you can literally just take in a very simple way. You can literally just take your whatever texture you want, flatten the normal out, and then make the roughness like almost like fully black so that you get like nice shiny reflections. That is a way to kind of create this sort of technique where you can paint puddles while it looks like it is still on top of like um these tiles, right? But it's basically just like you remove the normal and you increase the roughness whenever you paint. And then you can do sometimes what you also do is you do base color adjustments well because where you want water to be, it will darken base color as well. So yeah. Simple decals, it worked pretty much the same way for when I was adding simple graffiti decals in 5.6 or 7 project. Yeah, I'm talking about like older stuff. Like older. Yeah, I can't even remember when the last time that I used. Oh no, so we used it for like a studios project that we were doing like a while back. That's like a couple of years ago. So yeah, ignore anything that I'm saying. This is outdated for most of you all here. Top G is saying, I vertex painted it, basically like Tim said. Also, it combines with the puddle decal, and I vertex painted dirt where the puddle is to enhance reflections. Ooh. Doesn't water also reflect off objects less as distance increases? Does water also reflect off objects less as distance increases? Maybe, but you're gonna get that through mid mapping anyway. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about it because there's a lot of stuff that like fades out over distance regardless what you do in an engine, right? Because it's trying to optimize performance anyway at a distance. So potentially, and a lot of that might be actually um, baked into the performance of an engine by default. Yeah. Thank you for showcasing it. A moment, looking really nice. Wow, Tim. I know. I know. Look, as a saying, I always shied away from dioramas because I don't know how to make it look good, but that advice helped me too. Yeah, there's a bunch of cool ways that you can make like a diorama look really interesting. Um, I think just having like fade outs or cutouts, I think those are like really interesting. If there's one other immediate person that I think of when I think about dioramas, this is my go-to. It's my friend Jasmine, and we're gonna be talking about her work again. Hold on, let me do this properly on the main screen. So, if you want to have a look at like some dioramas, right? Like, go to Jasmine's like older work, and you can kind of see that you can make like some really cool stuff with just like very simple dioramas, right? Or basically most of the scene, like even this, right? This is also a smart way of just reducing the scope of the scene by putting stuff into place. You can see less of the scene, right? And it becomes a diorama as well. I love any reason to talk about Jasmine's work. Yeah, me too. It seems she just has like such good. I think the reason why I bring it up so much is because it shows that you can build a really high quality portfolio that is built on small projects. And the benefit about that is that you can really build out your portfolio in a very quick way. Because, for example, this, right? Like, while I was grinding my ass off, like trying to make something work for like an art station challenge and making a full environment, she just focused on the quality of it, right? She was just like, hey, I'm going to make it small. I'm going to focus on squeezing the maximum amount of quality out of it as I can. And look at this. It looks beautiful, right? And this is an example of like a nice graphical element. And you can see that this graphical element actually translates into the scene because the circle continues. It's subtle stuff, but it looks really nice. Yeah. She's always been a great example of this stuff, you know? Small scoped scenes that focus on high quality stuff. That's going to be good. And then through all of this, she got so comfortable in doing the workflow that she then just jumped to doing this stuff, right? Still a diorama, but you can see that there's a step in complexity in the dioramas, right? Storytelling, the amount of detail, the amount of assets, presentation taken to the next level. So good. But yeah, I mean, I'm glazing at this point, but like she was so good at focusing on small, relatively short projects, really increasing her skills on a small time scale, and then slowly but surely like increasing the scale of her projects, you know? Really good stuff. Also, I hope she doesn't mind me doing this, but if you go to her Sketchfab, you can actually see her older projects, even older than her ArtStation. And you can see the experimentation that she's done as well, which I find very interesting. If you go to her older work, everything is still on here. You know, and you can see experimentation with different styles and different cutouts and different things. And you can see over time, she grew very comfortable with like one aspect, right? Of like with one style, let's say. But it's so fun to look at this. Like, this is a timeline that is really interesting to look at. I've always found this super interesting. Yeah. BRB, gonna dial in Jasmine. It is my pleasure to actually be able to work with her. Like we co-organize like the meetup that we do in Cologne. I do that together with Cronenberger and my partner Tiffany. Um, yeah, all like really inspirational people. Like, yeah, really, really happy and really fortunate to be able to share such a cool venue with them. Cool. Enough compliments. Jasmine, they're talking about you again. Oh God, don't tell her this. Okay, moving on. Abdu, you wanted. Well, interestingly enough, this is actually like a very nice coincidence. You want to make a diorama too. or like you're thinking about like presentations on like how to make a diorama presentation, right? Um, Interestingly enough, for your sake, I'm gonna do a 180. While you can do a presentation with a diorama, with a cutout and a fade out and all that kind of stuff, right? I think with your work, it would potentially be quicker to just grab like a bunch of Megascan assets and just do a presentation like this. Because I know that for your style, like the realism that you kind of want to go for, right? Everything is available to you anyway. So we can really quickly just make like foreground and a background with like Megascan trees and like all these assets, and then you can just focus on the building itself. I think for this kind of an environment, I think that could be like a better way of going forward. But again, if you want to make it a diorama, you can make a fade work, but look back at some of the previous examples, right? Like think about how you can then put a nice spin on the presentation, because a fade out that will work, but how do you then present that within a realistic style, right? Like how is that going to be done? Because then how is the sky going to work, right? Are we going to have a sky in the scene, or is that just going to be cut out as well? There's some things where I would honestly just try a couple of experimental techniques and see what you can do with your presentation already at this point. If none of them really work out, or you kind of feel like, yeah, maybe it's not that great, then go for the full presentation and grab like a bunch of Megascan assets and set dress it as like a full scene. That would probably be my go forward for your work. So yeah, two birds, one stone. Thank you for sharing your work, Abdu. Appreciate that as well. And then we have four more people. So let's have a look at all of these beautiful pieces of art. We're going to start with Mac Trees, or Tree QZ. This is a question over like the overall composition and the overall idea feedback. I do really like it. I do like that we have like this destroyed landscape and the desaturated colors, and it's very bleak and yeah, sort of, I don't know, depressing. Let's call it bleak. I don't want to call it depressing. Let's say. Um, and this is I only picked like one color scheme, right? Because we're talking more about the composition. I would say a couple of things about the composition is that, first of all, it looks really nice. I like that you're already dragging us in. Oh my god, excuse me. I love that you're already dragging us in with the road, right? Maybe you can do like a little bit more with like, let's say, coming down from a road, or maybe the camera is lower to actually have us more grounded in the scene. That is probably like one thing that I'll mention. And then one potential question or slight concern that I have is, we're doing a battlefield, which does mean that this entire region is going to require a lot of work if we want to go for like a dead man zone, right? So do keep that in mind, that if you want to make that look good, we're going to need destroyed trees, ruins, craters, like all that kind of stuff. If you want to go that far, right? Because you do want to show off like those elements of war. I'm assuming that's at least what it looks like. Because otherwise, like, I really don't know. That's my gut instinct. I really don't know what else we're going to be filling this with, rather than just like chaos and destruction, right? Yeah, and then the last thing was just like the camera feels like it's floating, right? So maybe the terrain is like sculpted to go a little bit up to the person where we're standing, and then it looks like we're going down into a hill. Or we can lower the camera, right? That could also be nice. Already saying, Asadi, you have to go, but this looks all amazing, and thank you for all the fun and amazing advice you give me. Yeah, and thank you for being here as well. Appreciate you giving your time to us as well, Arvid. Cool. Yeah, so those are a couple of things that I would say. Otherwise, I like the composition, maybe a little bit more like a foreground element, as in like the hill or something like that we're standing on, right? Or more lowering the camera. And that gives us more opportunities to do something with the foreground. Let's say the camera is lower, and then you add like a couple of barricades, right? So you have like, I don't know, like sandbags in front of us, and then maybe there's like, I don't know, partial dead tree on the left or something like that, right? Something like that. It helps us play with like potentially some foreground elements too, if you wanted to do that. Just some idea. But that depends on the changes with the camera, right? Ooh, and also gonna talk about it again. But think about what we did with the live demo from Malta's work, right? Man, fog, especially volumetric fog, is gonna love a scene like this, right? Especially where we can showcase just like the slow lingering fog that you get from like shells like impacting and stuff, right? Oh, it's gonna look so good. Yeah, cool. Some ideas there, but overall, I really like it. I like the lighting where that's going too. Potentially, one last thing maybe. I wonder, yeah, can we do something additional here to attract additional attention? Maybe maybe there's still like some lights inside, right? Or something like that. I know that's like very logical for like wartime, but maybe that's something that we can play with. Like a very sort of dim light. Or um maybe like a first aid cross, right? With like a message on the banner or something like that. Maybe that's something that we can play with into. And then yeah, have it like partially ripped or partially destroyed or something like that. So that this is like a first aid post that they're still defending. I don't know. Could be cool. Some dead trees on the left side of the church, maybe. Yeah, I think you can definitely get a lot from some dead trees in the scene. You know, that's going to help a lot because it also reinforces the thematic of just like humanity as wiped out nature, right? So scattering dead trees in the scene is going to look so good because it just reinforces this idea that like humanity has just destroyed nature, right? There's something very violent about that. Yeah, cool stuff. Nice to see the scene. Next one is probably going to be a quick one from Mana because Mana is showing her progress on the trim sheet, and the trim sheet is looking really tasty. I like it. One initial thing. Wait, let's not do that. Let's start out the scene first because I do like the way that it's implemented. I like it a lot. Oh, this is something I just noticed. It would be nice to use your trim sheet for little lip around these corners. It's like usually these fancy older buildings, they have like little trims and all that kind of stuff around like bottoms, the bottom of any wood paneling, right? Because you kind of have this lip here, but this almost feels just like a straight thing going down. Usually, usually it's something like this, right? We kind of have something like this, and then this is the wall, and this is the floor. We are book is saying honestly, just one simple big dead tree where a mannequin is standing on the left will do. Yeah. Oh, I think there's like a huge delay on the stream as well. I don't know for the background yet, but it will be the battlefield. That's the idea. Yeah. Nice one. Yeah, some good feedback there. So one big dead tree with a mannequin standing on the left would just do. Yeah. I think that could also be cool. Because yeah, I mean, it also comes down to what we said earlier, right? With Malta's work, but like clustering sometimes less is more, where you can have like just a single iconic tree that is just like standing there, right? Signifying just the destruction of nature. Yeah, cool stuff. So getting back to this, so we have like a trim at the bottom. I think that's looking nice. If that is there, let me see. How did that work here? It's kind of hard to see. Oh, it's blocked by the chair. Yeah. Same thing here. You probably want to continue like this stuff as well. Yeah, that's a small thing. There was one additional comment, and this is something that I just noticed. This is not like direct feedback, but I noticed that you had like color variation in your trim sheet. This is actually something that you could do inside of your material, right? Whether you could do it by material instance. So let's say you have one material instance that is colored dark and one is colored light, and then you slap them on like different parts of your trim sheet. That's probably going to be the quickest way, but that could give you a bit more control in the engine rather than having to go back and change things up. And then you could say like, hey, look, I always want one section to be a different color. So maybe you could make that into a mask, or you just do what I just said and just have like two different instances where one is dark. Yeah, so one instance is dark and then the other one is light. And then you could say, oh, on certain elements, this is going to be light, so this is number 2, and then the top trim is going to be number 1. And now we can start tweaking the color in the engine. Gives it a little bit more flexibility. So in that case, if you want to get the optimal effect, your base color will actually be grayscale values, right? So you still want variation, but the variation is going to be grayscale, and then we layer or we multiply a color on top of it. Yeah. That's just an idea. You don't have to do that. How you're doing it currently works fine, right? And that's the most important part. This just gives you more scalability. Cool. Next up is Umbrella. Starting a new project. A Swiss style, oh my god. A Swiss chalet style hotel in the mountains. Okay, that was a freaking tongue twister for no reason. The main reference is AI generated. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, we'll talk about that for sure. But I am taking some creative liberty to make it make sense. I'm trying to balance aesthetics and logics for when doing spacing, dimensions, and such. It's a bit hard, so I'm going to try a lot and compare. Maybe I feel like it's a bit right heavy in my blockout. So here's the thing. I think you said it beautifully in your explanation as well. So you're trying to balance aesthetics and logic when doing spacing, dimensions, and such, and it's a big hard. You know why it's hard? Because you're using the wrong fundamentals, right? I am not necessarily opposed to using AI references in your work. However, what it is doing is it doesn't give you the right foundations. Because what it is doing is just literally just like kid bashing stuff together. And once you actually start thinking about the logic, you start getting confused because you need to make sense of it all of a sudden, right? I would always say you can kind of use it as an inspiration, right? And then go and find what it is really based on, right? Because I can guarantee you, if you just chuck this into like Google reverse search or whatever, you're probably going to find some stuff that looks like very similar. And that is the study you want to use, because then we know the accurate proportions, we know that it's built in a certain way, and we also know that like certain elements are not going to be present because that would be completely illogical, right? So that is my view on it. You want your foundations to be as realistic as possible. The same thing counts for game references as well, right? I don't mind game references, but if you're relying on them as your only source and you're not using real references, you're gonna run into issues. Because whatever you're doing, and this is always the case that I made about game references as well, or let's say even concept art, right? What you're doing is you are looking through another person's eyes and they've applied their own logic and they've made some parts of that reference already theirs, right? So they've put their own artistic intent behind it. What we want to do is we want to get to the source of it. We want to skip all the other stuff. That gives us the best possible idea of what we want to build, right? So I know that you already have like a couple of buildings. I would honestly use those instead of using like AI references, right? Or use those as a foundation and then maybe use that as like, oh, this could be cool if I can then find like supporting references for it. Um, yeah, trying to find real inspirations and references. Yeah, because the most important thing is that if you don't have solid foundations and they're not rooted in real life, we are going to build on top of it, and then as soon as we build like a castle, now we realize that the foundations are shoddy, right? And the whole thing is going to collapse, right? And that's when we're gonna struggle. We're probably gonna just completely give up on the project, if I'm going to be honest, because now something fundamental is broken and we need to go all the way back, right? Right. And then you also said that right now it feels like a bit right heavy in your block out. And I did like a quick overpaint, right? So I just focused on the volumes of the buildings, and then I just did a quick scribble on top of it. And then I just literally moved that over here and kind of put it into place. And we can kind of see the difference between those two buildings already, right? This one is like way too tall compared to the other one. So yeah, if you have like a relatively similar camera angle, just overlay the original image on top of it and see how it stacks up. It's always a good thing to do, because now we can immediately see that like the right building feels slimmer, it doesn't feel as tall, and it doesn't take up as much space, right? Because as you said, we want the right or like the left building to be dominant, right? So yeah, couple of notes there. Start with good fundamentals. They're going to be key to everything. The better those are, the easier it is to build something on top of it. Cool. Thank you, Umbrella. And then the last one for today, we already talked about it in the beginning of the stream, but Teapot is building a new scene. And for this one, we are going to be talking about composition quite a lot. So let me bring up their work, their Discord. It will probably be a quick Whip Wednesday question, but my question is if the feel for the blockout so far is what I want. The outpost on the side of the mountain, and if the landscape feels big enough. Yeah, I mean, the outpost on the side of the mountain, I mean, it is on the side of a mountain, so that's good, and the landscape is pretty big. But I think if you go back to composition, right, we can definitely make some improvements that are going to really help us solidify where everything's going to look, right? And here's a couple of things, right? Going back to the rule of thirds, right? Again, if you missed that in the beginning, go check back to the beginning demo where we talked about the stuff. But basically dividing your frame in 3 equal parts and then trying to move big important elements as close to those conversion points as possible, right? So I did that here with the house, and then the mountain is actually going to be my other point. So you can kind of see that I moved the mountain more to the left and possibly a little bit up. And then we can create this really cool curve that kind of takes you down from the mountain, and that's going to point to the house directly, which is going to be really cool. And then we can still have some like additional mountains in the back if we wanted to, if we need to. I don't think you need that necessarily, but we could. But yeah, this gives us already like a good fundamental understanding of like where my leading lines are going to be, right? So we're gonna have leading lines coming from the mountain. Let me pick a good color. What is a good color? Blue. Down the mountain, pointing to the house, and then we have a path that kind of leads you to the house as well at the same time. So those elements are already going to be very solid from like a fundamental aspect. And then we can kind of dress up like the background with like a couple more mountains and stuff, because we know that the foundations of the scene are going to be solid already. Cool. Yeah. So a couple quick ideas here. Use the rule of thirds. It's your friend. and think about like where you can put those elements in your scene to kind of bring it all together, right? Also, when you're doing a block out, think about what the most fundamental thing is that's going to help you lead the player towards the final destination, right? In this case, our final destination here is the block out, or like the block hut. So how do we get there? I think the mountain is already a fantastic job, but I do want to see a spline or a road already being present and carved into the terrain, because that is going to be our major leading line going into the house. So already at that, and that's going to help with player leading. Cool. And that's all I have to say on this one. Couple of compositional tweaks. Yeah. Maybe one last thing is that you can also tell that if I remove like all my scribbles on top of it, what has happened is that your two big interesting points in your scene, right, are in the middle. You have your mountain and you have the cabin. So what you're basically doing now is saying like, hey, this is where everything important happens in the scene. The rest of it, you don't have to care about that. There's nothing interesting going to happen there anyway. So you can see what we also did by using the rule of thirds is we moved some of those elements further apart. So that means that instead of doing this, we now have something that more resembles this, right? So that means that we're also making more effective space of our canvas, right? So that's also a good thing about using the rule of thirds and like the intersection points of where they are. And especially with the path coming in, we can count that in as well. But yeah. Yeah. Nice one, Teapot. Good stuff. Interesting choice. I'm curious to see where it's going to go. Right. And that means that we end nice on time for our last Whip Wednesday session. That was going to be live streamed on YouTube. Because for people that missed it, we are from next week going to be doing these inside of our Discord only for community members. So, yeah, it's going to be a change for all of us. But yeah, I'm excited to be able to actually talk to people, to actually get people on stage, talk about stuff, maybe do some live demos, and do all that good stuff. So it's been a while. We've done these for like, oh my God, I can't even remember how long we've been doing these. But it's been a pleasure having you all here, and thank you all so much for the support. You know, I will never say never that it will ever come back, but what I want to do now for the foreseeable future is I want to focus more on connection between members, between myself and the people that are building cool stuff, and also making sure that that we hear each other's comments, that we have more context, and that like the stuff that I give is more appropriate and maybe even more live and engaging. I think it's going to be really fun. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with doing Megfal's like live demo as well. So I want to do more of that stuff. So we're going to be setting up like all those things in the Discord, and hopefully that's going to be like really fun. I'm looking really forward to it. It's going to be really nice. Lauda is saying, "Oh my God, Discord exclusive with Wednesday! Let's go!" Yeah, it will be fun. And then they're still going to be recorded. We're still going to make them available to people. Maybe in the transition, it might take a little bit, as we figure out what the best way of doing that is. But you will still be able to view them. We're going to make sure that that's going to work. Let's see. So Rasaya is asking, would having everything in one area make it feel more alone and isolated? I think you could use that in a way if you didn't have like such a unique mountain. Right? If you just have the cabin and the rest of the terrain is like less interesting in shapes, you could then use that to emphasize emptiness and isolation, right? I think that could be a way of doing it. But I don't think that's necessarily what they're going to go for. Go to change. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I want to get my hands dirty with people's scenes. And if people let me, I would love to do like more live demos because I've been loving it. I've been for context, I've been doing a lot of them with our initial group that is going through like the academy content right now. Well, sorta. It's more like a mini mentorship. But we basically share their scene with me like every week, and I get to do like live things in the scene, which is really cool. I love doing that stuff. All right. With that being said, this is not the last stream yet. We'll still be here on Friday for portfolio reviews, and that will be the last stream because that is also going to be moving into the Discord as well. But enough said about all that. I'm going to leave you all to it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all the support. If you want to continue with Wednesdays and enjoy all the feedback that we've given so far, feel free to join us inside of our community. We'd love to have you. And then, yeah, I would hope that I can see your projects there. But without further ado, I'm heading out for tonight. I wish you all a creative the rest of the week, and then we'll see each other on Friday. Bye-bye.